Welcome. I'm Brad Schepisi, and here we're responding to St. Dominic's challenge to all men to be the hammer, not the anvil. If this is your first time with us, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell so you don't miss a thing. Today we're talking to Justin. He's been in a number of our videos on all of our channels. But today, Justin, you've got a special announcement for us, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do. All right, I'm going to the seminary.
You're going to the seminary. Praise God. Tell us, what started that whole discernment process that leads you to that?
I split up my vocation story in two different distinct kind of periods. The first period was when I was in high school, and again, I was like coming to the church and convert in my process of learning more about the church. And in my process of learning more about the church, I found out more about priests and the priesthood and what priests wear and what priests do and everything. And that interests me, and I'd never seen it before. And I remember distinctly during this period of my life, junior year, I was in love with somebody, and but during that time, I remember writing in my journal that how much I was in love with this young lady, and I wrote down I'll probably become a priest if the church allow priests to be married and everything, because again I really like this woman, I really like this young woman, but there's something about being a priest that I liked, being a spiritual type of leader, but once that again faded away, and that potential relationship I could have had was faded away, and I got into college and stuff, and I did actually was in a relationship, well, not with that particular girl, with a different one, but along that way, before I would get into my first relationship in college, I used to joke of maybe I should pack it up and become a priest, because it's probably never going to happen, find a girlfriend and everything. And also, I remember in high school doing an assignment, and they told you, and the assignment was really write your obituary, and it's basically say how did you live, how did you live a full life, and I remember writing down very clearly, and I learned about the eastern half of the Catholic Church at this time as well. So I knew they had married priests. So I thought, oh shoot, that's probably a way to enter in. But I remember writing specifically that I was a Byzantine Catholic priest who had a church called the Church of the Resurrection, who was married and had a lot of kids. And so that looking back, that's probably a little bit of clues and stuff that God may have placed there. But then again, flash forward back to college. After I had gotten out of a relationship, didn't work out. This was around 2015. I started to first I took some time. Again, I was immature in that relationship, and I wanted to again take some time to finish growing up, finish my studies, graduate from college, and just finish growing to be a man, and fully maturing as a man for whoever was going to be. It was around this I spent some. It was maybe several months after this relationship had failed, and I started to think seriously about the notion of vocation. And I've been Catholic, and I come and converted, and I've been Catholic for about 2 years at this point, and so I learned about vocations, at least here and there. But I started to think more about the notion of a vocation, and the notion that it is a vocare from the Latin, a call, was we could do a vocal from. It's a call to do something from God. And what struck me is the notion within the Catholic Church is that God created you for a specific purpose, for a specific vocation. So there's some men who were called to be priests because God created them to be priests, and some that were called to be married like yourself because God called you to be married, and so on and so forth. And that notion really struck with me. And so I began to seriously think about, if God has called people to vocations, what's my vocation? If God has created people to do certain things, what might God have created me to do? And that, in answering that question, began the second half of this, what lead me to this call to go to seminary. And I started to think, one of the things I ended up doing was, when I was young, I used to worry so much about being in a relationship, trying to find a girlfriend. Like, I stopped all those notions and said, okay, I've been assuming marriage this whole time, assuming that, oh, I'm going to get married. But God could be calling me to something different. So I, voluntarily said, okay, let me just stop thinking about being married. Let me stop trying to force the issue of me trying to find a girlfriend. Let me just focus on growing up. Stop assuming marriage and really answer that question, ask that question to myself. Well, God could be calling me to do anything, and at that moment I opened myself up to all the possible vocations that there were available. And by the time it got to late 2015, I started to think specifically about the priesthood, and I wanted to think about it a little bit more. And that began the journey to this moment of thinking about the priesthood that never really ended. It just kept getting stronger and deeper and more pervasive within my heart. And eventually it got strong enough to the next step was to go through the application process. And after much prayer, after much consideration, and after much talking with others, and also the very fact that it stayed around, this wanting to think about the priesthood, but also for the fact that as I got deeper, it never went away, and God never sent a roadblock. So that eventually led to earlier this year, finally, after 2 years of thinking about it, making that decision to contact the vocations director, even though I've been knowing him for some years prior to that, and finally saying, okay, let me start the application process.
So in this whole process, I've known you, I've watched you grow spiritually in amazing ways. Has there been something that God has shown you about yourself that was either a surprise or just something that was completely unexpected?
I wouldn't say that he has shown me something that I didn't know about myself that was a surprise, but it was a more gradual realization of certain things that I were drawn to and attracted to, and some of the things that I've already done in the past that lines up with this particular call. I've always been like a certain spiritual leader among my peers and stuff. Leading the prayers during the football games and for the football team, even in college, again being chosen to be the spiritual chair at MTSU Catholic when I at Middle Tennessee State University when I went to college, and then later being selected by my peers to be the external director there, and me teaching catechism to kids, again, me always having some type of spiritual leadership there, but also just even from that to the even more the lesser things. I've always been attracted to clerical clothing, and when I wear it, I've always loved wearing the cassock and surplice and serving mass, and always been drawn to the mass, and and having a pride about worshiping God in this liturgical way. So it's just been mostly just a gradual realization that God has given me to about things about myself that I already knew, but he's connecting the dots.
That's what I was going to ask you again, because I've watched you over this time. I think you've changed parishes. You've gone to a more traditional parish downtown. You've begun serving, altar serving at Mass. And I've watched this love that you've had for the Mass, for the Holy Eucharist, just blossom. It seems in the last 6 months, maybe the last year. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, that love for the Eucharist, that love for the liturgy has always been there. Because again, we could talk about my conversion story in another video, but like part of my conversion story includes me being drawn to the liturgy and experiencing the liturgy, because that's something that I had never experienced before, and I wanted that. And so me studying the liturgy and being exposed to the liturgy through the Mass, but also through internet resources and books, led to me this love, this knowledge about the Mass. And then what keeps my love of the liturgy is what we believe about the liturgy itself. What's at the center of that liturgy, and that's the Eucharist, the source and summit of the faith. And if as a Catholic, I believe that that bread and that wine turns into literally God in the flesh, then I have to be there. And once I've been like ever since I started altar serving like some years ago, like I had carried that with me. Is that if that's God, then I have to be reverent as possible. I have to show that this is a big deal, because when I look at videos of military personnel, especially when it comes to the changing of the guard, like at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, for example, their every action is measured. Every action is done in a regimented, serious way that evokes the seriousness about what we're doing here. And so I've taken that same mindset and brought that into the way I help assist at Mass, especially an altar server, because I have this conviction about what the Mass means. Therefore, it reflects in my actions and stuff. It's like,
Justin, if there's a young man that's watching this that's discerning the priesthood, what would you have to say to them? What
brought me to this is in my own spiritual life is that you got to pray. Pray every day. Go to Mass. Again, at least every Sunday, but if you can go more, go to daily Mass and stuff, and spend that time in front of Jesus, and make time for silent prayer, because he will tell you what he wants you to do. To being with him and not saying a word, just being silent. Second, pray the rosary, because Mary is the mother of the high priest Jesus. Therefore, he's the mother of every priest that is configured to him. And there's really only one priesthood, is the priesthood of Jesus Christ, and we are configured into that priesthood. And then lastly, read all you can about the priesthood. Look at many different videos, like this video, like a lot of Be the Hammer videos, and look up a lot of vocation videos, because there's a wealth of YouTube videos out there that is doing what I'm doing right now. And there's so many videos that I've looked at what I'm doing right now, where there's guys just sitting there talking about the vocation story, and just look up those videos about the priesthood. Look at those videos about vocations. And there's one book that I would recommend is Saving 1,000 Souls by Father Brad Brannan. Get that and read that book. But
Justin, if we want to follow your walk and follow your journey, how can we keep in touch with you?
All right. So right now, I have a apostolate that I launched Easter Sunday this year called Black Catholic, and just on there I just give my perspective and my outlook on the world as an African American Catholic. And the tagline there is Catholicism through a colored lens. So if you want to follow me on there, anybody wants to follow my moves on there through my apostolate, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter. On Facebook, it's @TheBlackCatholic, but go and search, just type out Black Catholic. I should be one of the first things that pops up. And on Twitter, it's @BlackCatholic. And there is going to be a website coming out pretty soon, and but for now, just follow me on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, so men, here we are. We're challenging you to pray, to discern your vocation. God has you here for a reason. It's not just to play video games. We're challenging you to shift your thinking and to spend some time in prayer, to see what it is that God has you here for. What is your mission on this planet? Why are you here? Why did He create you? Remember, a man on an island is a dangerous thing. Be a lifeboat. Share this video with a young man that needs this message. For more from our ministry, check out our Catholic blog, laudare.org, or one of our other YouTube channels, Laudare or Man vs. Cave. Follow me on social media at Brad Schepisi, and until next time, be the hammer.